All right, we're on live. What's up, Sister Marcia? How you doing?
What's up, brother Gino, my
Yeah,
friend? It's so good to see you
good to
again.
see you as well, and welcome our audience, brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, cousins, grandparents, uncles, aunts, extended family, and so on and so on. Welcome back.
All
Welcome
those
back.
who love words like we do.
Yes. Oh, okay. I had to cue my intro. I'm sorry, Marcia. All right, y'all. Welcome back to That's a Word with Marcia and Gino. I'm Gino Morrow,
I'm
and
Marcia Williams Cromer.
that's who she is. And we begin each conversation with intention, one word at a time. Let's get into it. We got some good words. Some good words.
Yes,
Marcia.
yes. I'm so excited about my word. My word, I did, research on it and it was some
Uh-huh.
surprising things that came up. So my word is omen. And I will give you the definition. Omen is a noun and it is an event, sign, or occurrence believed to foretell a future event, a symbolic indicator of what is to come, often interpreted as positive or negative. It can carry either hope or warning depending on context. The etymology or origin of the word is Latin for omen, meaning foreboding or prophetic sign, related to ancient Roman religious practices where priests interpreted bird movements, lightning strikes, animal behavior, unusual natural events. In many early civilizations, Roman, Greek, Mesopotamian, and even biblical contexts, omens were taken seriously as communication between the divine and humanity. So, from a cultural and historical context, in ancient Rome, no political decision of importance was ever made without consulting omens. I thought that was really interesting. A flight of birds in the wrong direction could delay war or an election. It's
Wow.
crazy. Comets were often considered omens of royal death. Interesting details about the meaning. Neutral by nature. The word omen is neutral by nature.
That's
Nature.
okay. Uh-huh.
Omen itself is not inherently negative. Culture often frames it as foreboding, but it can,
Oh, yeah.
yes, it can signal blessings or breakthrough.
That's an interesting.
Interpretation defines power. An omen only has meaning if someone interprets it. Without interpretation, it's just an event. I
Wow.
love that, right? And I
Wow.
mean, I hadn't even thought of that concept. The modern use in contemporary language, omen often appears in political analysis, climate discussions, social commentary, a troubling omen for democracy, or a positive omen for economic recovery. And I love this word. And I really can't wait for us to dive a little bit deeper into it.
So I got some thoughts, and you drive this wherever you want to drive it, but it triggered some initial thoughts within my mind. Um, of course, the negative
Okay.
connotation, because we all grew up watching the movie The Omen with little Damien and his
Yep.
six six
Yep.
six marking on his head. So anytime I heard the
Right.
word Omen growing up, it was always a negative connotation. Um,
Same
and it
here.
triggered
Same here.
fear,
I, I,
right?
I
Right?
would say primarily. I would say
Uh-huh.
primarily for me, if something was an omen, it was you need to look out, you need to be on guard, you need to be careful. But I think as I started writing more, I
Uh-huh.
recognized that there are also good omens, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But I think to your point, when we were younger, it was, some thunderstorm would come up in the country at my grandmother's house. And, that was an omen. And you went into all these different modes of protection, couldn't watch TV, you can't sew, and all this kind of, they just had a bunch of superstitions. And here's what I want to also bring
Superstitions.
up
Uh-huh.
is what's the difference between like an omen and a superstition, and when does an omen become a superstition?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because okay, so another thought that I have that aligns with that, and we can unearth that, we can dig that up a little bit more is I wrote down a thought. Well, an omen basically carries the power of the person who interprets it, because
Yeah,
as you mentioned, like if you pay no attention to it, it may not have any impact on you at all, but it had to be interpreted in order for it to be determined whether it was positive or negative, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't you feel that we're all wired differently in terms of how our first responses to things? I know people whose first response is to recoil in protection, right?
Mhm.
And for me, I tend to be more of an optimist. So I'm always looking for a positive sign.
Yeah.
I don't even see like an omen as a negative sign because I just don't process the world that way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But if you do lean toward, and some of this is cultural,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I grew up, hanging out with my grandmom, my mom's mom, and they're in East Texas. And there were little things like covering windows, or well, windows and mirrors if somebody passed away,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know if you remember that from back in the day, but those kind of things I found as a child scary
Uh-huh.
because it didn't come with an explanation.
Right.
You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
And now that I have asked the questions about why do we do it, I didn't even know at 3 to ask, why are you doing that? I just thought it was kind
At
of
3 when we were growing
scary.
up, you were just told to listen and do as you were
E-
told. You don't ask no
Exactly,
questions.
exactly. And not only that, as a child, you're learning your own mores through watching the people
That's
around you.
right. Mhm.
Yeah. So I didn't really, see it until I understood enough. And I realized not everybody does that. So my question is, why do we do that? And I know from a cultural standpoint, some of this probably even comes from Africa, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think some of it comes from the culture all the way, through the African diaspora.
I think you raise a strong point because the thought that came to mind is a lot of the times we pick up our mores and our behaviors, like especially when we were growing up, our grandparents were just like maybe a half a generation or a generation removed from sharecropping and
Right,
slavery.
right,
And so the
exactly.
consequence of not being obedient could be dire, or even fatal, which
Right,
meant they say it, they ain't gonna give an explanation. You
right.
just follow the instruction. And oftentimes things came as a negative omen for us because even though it was a warning or a foretelling, it did not provide adequate explanation on the consequences or how to avoid the consequences other than just being obedient,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
which is interesting. We'll get there.
That's true. That's true. And I found it interesting to see how connected omens are from a biblical standpoint,
Yeah,
even.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I guess I really had not. And again, to your point, the fact that we, saw that crazy movie, The Omen, back in the
Mhm,
70s.
Scared
And
shit
yeah,
out of
so
me.
oh my God. But I'm gonna tell you, I'm not sure we're not living through it. I'm just saying.
We are, but we are definitely living through it. But I was saying, like, I was scared because my mother, we would watch it, and then my mother would be like, "Okay, time to go to bed now." Little Davy
No,
ain't gonna be under my bed.
no, 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 no. And even now, I don't really do scary movies, but
Yeah,
if I am going to watch one because it has some historical relevance and I want to see it for that reason,
yeah,
I will watch it, but I just can't do it at night. I have to
that's
make
right. Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
the sun
Uh huh.
is up already and it's going to
Uh huh.
stay up for a while.
Yeah, I don't do it for any entertainment anymore. There used to be I had a tolerance for that. I don't have a tolerance for that anymore now, especially since I understand how spirits can easily, you
Right,
know, yeah, get into
right.
your mind, your
Yep.
space, your spirit. Yeah, you got to be conscious of that.
Yeah,
Um,
you can't engage that stuff, man.
so Marcia, there were two. two words that came to mind when you were reading the definition of omen, and those two words are more modern. They are, in writing, we call it foreshadowing.
Yes, yes. And that's one of the words that it used as a synonym.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And the other one is synchronicity. And I think the reason why I wanted to point that out is because you mentioned how there are certain things that we do. Like, we've had experiences of we've had lessons from our parents and grandparents that instilled in us certain foreshadowing. And it just basically was a warning. And and we got certain superstitions that highlight that all the time. Step on a crack, break your mama back. You name it.
Right.
We got all kinds of like things that we consider superstitions, but if we dig into them, they may really have been our cultural attempts at foreshadowing or providing us with an awareness of something that could be detrimental if we didn't pay attention.
Yeah, and remember that omens don't have to just happen one time. So typically, if it's happened in the past, it's perceived as an omen for a future event that is similar. You know
Oh,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So then there's a pattern there. Actually, even the definition says that omens look for patterns so that there is some consistency to
Mhm,
it. So the
mhm.
next 10 years later, you see a similar event, and then there's your omen. There's your recognition that this is what typically follows.
That's right. That's right. Because what was that? Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah, that was another movie with the birds. Like the as a child, when I would see the birds congregate, it reminded me of the Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Yeah,
National.
it still does me the same to
Okay.
this day.
See
To
how.
this day, yeah,
But my point was the omen is not necessarily the negativity of being attacked by birds. The omen is the pattern recognition of birds migrating at a certain point in time throughout the year, which tells you how to prepare or plan.
right,
So the omen in that context is not a negative. It's a okay, we're headed towards spring now.
right, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I love it. I love that. And as I'm thinking about how you're talking about the birds and how that all lines up, I think one of the things from an omen perspective is it is also a signaling so that if and again, like we talked about before, a pattern. So if birds do that, in the spring and start to line up on the wires or whatever, then you start to realize, okay, this is a certain time of year. But also, if they don't come, and sometimes they don't because there's a shift, maybe there's overdevelopment in that area and they don't feel safe. They may want to come there, but the lines are now all down or something has changed for them. So
Uh-huh.
you're like, what is that omen? That omen is
Right.
changes happening, and the birds are adapting to that, and nature is adapting to that.
That's a fact.
Yeah, yeah,
Another potential omen, it good or bad, is when you were a teenager and you saw them lights come on out on the street.
yeah,
Well, what
yeah.
omen did that speak to?
Yeah, yeah, that spoke to get your butt in the house now. Okay. And if I have to come looking for you, it's not gonna work out well.
Now, if you was already close to the house, then it was a positive omen. I'm not getting in trouble today. I made it home on time. But if you
Exactly, exactly. I love it. I love it. And that is my word today. And Gino, what
yeah,
is your word? Speak your word, brother.
all right. Well, interestingly enough, my word is obedience.
Okay, okay.
You better have your ass in the house before them lights come on.
Yeah, it's a great segue.
Yep. Because I'm going to show my obedience so that I don't have to worry about the consequence of negative omens.
Okay, listen. And at that point, I don't think it's an omen. You already know.
All right, all right. So my word is obedience, which is a noun. And it's funny because Marcia and we were having this conversation prior to the recording about, I was like, well, how is it a noun? I mean, how is it a thing? It sounds like an action. It must be a verb. Let's just confirm this because I don't want to get on and sound stupid. Marcia looked it up and she was like, no, it's a noun. She was like, the root word though is obey, and that's a verb. And I was like, okay. All right. So thank you for correcting me on that, Marcia.
It's
Uh
it's all good because you know what, when you hear the word, it feels like something you do, right?
right.
But yeah, but not in the form of obedience. That is a noun.
So I got a little bit of reading to share in order to have this conversation. I think it lays down the foundation for the conversation around obedience. And I chose obedience because I'm in a marriage, and it's a word that we use frequently in our conversations, my wife and I. And it's naturally with today's environment of women's rights and civil rights violations or civil rights being removed from, law and order in America, et cetera, et cetera. Obedience is a term that is often looked at in a negative way, a lot like Omen. And so I thought it would be a good conversation to have, especially in the context of, how we use it, which is biblically. So anyway, I'm going to share a little bit about some of the things that I dug up. The word compliance with a command, prohibition or known law and rule of duty prescribed. The performance of what is required or enjoining by authority or the abstaining from what is prohibited in compliance with the command or prohibition. To constitute obedience, the act or forbearance to act must be in submission to authority. The command must be known to the person, and his compliance or her compliance must be in consequence of it, or it is not obedience. I thought that was very interesting.
That's neat. That's
Uh,
good.
yeah. Um, One of the conversations that my wife and I used to have in the earlier part in the earlier part of our marriage was like what does it mean to be obedient? Is it obedient? And it was an exchange. It was not, I'm not an authoritarian in my marriage. I take my role as husband and head very seriously. And for some people who don't necessarily have the same traditional values, that may mean something different to you. Well, get a grip of your feelings. You ain't married to me.
I know that's right.
But I say that to say, like, we would have these discussions around what obedience means because, when we were young and we were learning about our roles and it wasn't given, it wasn't handed to us. We had to go through a lot. And my wife and I, we don't come from traditional families necessarily, so we had a lot of learning to do, and we would often get to this point in the conversation where where at least from my perspective, I would go, well, obedience is not just doing the things you want to do or you prefer to do. That's not obedience. Obedience is complying even when you don't necessarily like or agree with what it is that you're complying with. Now, the ambiguity of using terms like compliance and not giving a sort of context might throw some people off because most people would arguably state, oh, why would I comply with something that might be hurtful? Well, if you look at it in the context of a marriage, number one, somebody who considers themselves to be the head of the household wouldn't ask their spouse, the person that they love, the person that they would put their life on the line for, to do something that was, oh, I'm getting feedback. That was weird. I'm sorry. Um, they wouldn't, I wouldn't ask my wife to do something that would put her life in jeopardy or
Right, right.
humiliate her or embarrass her publicly or anything in that nature. So obedience it goes both ways. Am I being obedient to what God requires of me as a husband so that I am magnifying my wife's gifts and talents and essence? And is she being obedient to me as a man who's was obedient to God. And so, it becomes a matter of alignment rather than preference or desire.
And you know what? As I'm listening to you, first of all, I'm so glad I know you. I just think you're amazing.
Oh, thank
And I've been, I've had the gift and honor of being friends with you and your wife. And I see how you guys navigate. And, I've told you before how, proud it is if you make me to be able to observe and watch. But it truly is a partnership. At the end of the day, the head of household is saying, I'm not asking you to be subservient. I'm asking that you trust me with, this structure that we have created called a marriage. And as I hear that, I think, especially earlier in life, we went through the feminist, revolution and all of that.
Mhm.
And, just the idea that, well, I don't have to be obedient to, you're not my dad or whatever, but somebody has to assume that role. And I think a lot of times, and I, put myself in that same category, we confuse obedience with submission.
Yeah,
You mentioned that earlier, and
yeah.
I feel like, to again, just understanding the etymology of, words, where this word came from, and how, practical it is, because there's every entity needs some type of structure to be successful. And it isn't about me feeling the need to be my own person or anything like that. However, having said that, the person that is the one who should be assuming the lead needs to be trustworthy and own that. You're not going to get that trust if you don't show and exemplify that you are worthy of that. So there are times, I think, as we're out there choosing people to partner and hook up with,
Hmm.
we forget that it's okay to, lead me. I'm a leader in just about every area of my life. I would
Yeah,
love to have that person to say, you know what, I got this, and this is why, explaining, the process of your thinking and all of that. And over time, you earn the right to be in that position.
that's right. You
There
point
are
out some
people who just, they want the role, but that is a role of a lot of responsibility that you putting.
absolute.
Oh my God, you putting somebody else in a place to say, trust where we're going. And if you're not communicating, it's not even like you're giving dictating orders. You're just saying, we've had this discussion, we've come to conclusion, and as the leader, this is what I'm saying I think is the best, route to take. Somebody needs to step up and take that role, whether it's in your family or you're at work.
So to your point, my wife's trust in part was earned uh through my ability to clearly articulate our vision as a family in the direction that I desire for us to go in,
Right,
and my ability to get us to that destination.
right.
Because without a clear roadmap, my wife she would be following me blindly. And that creates distrust because any slight hiccup in the road,
Yep,
any bump in the
yep.
road, any deviation that requires a detour could trigger any type of feelings of, that nigga know what he talking about.
Right,
you know,
right,
do I
right.
really want to
and
follow him?
and then and then you start feeling like, well, I could do better. Then the other person in that relationship starts to feel like, you know I don't like the direction we're going in, because, to your point, the conversation around obedience has not taken place. It's just kind of blind, that you want to be someone to be led with blind faith, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And no, that conversation and your platform for it needs to be explained.
Yeah.
And as an intelligent person, whoever the next person in the relationship is, they need to understand this is a way for us both to win. I don't care what the relationship is. There's always got to be that person who wants and assumes that leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
But, and here's the other thing, there are times when, and we see it today, you're given a leadership role and you abuse it because power goes to your head. Now you feel like, okay, I've got this in check. They don't, I don't have to fight with them. Now I can just, make decisions that I want to make without really communicating downstream.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? And you saying that, it helped me realize one of the ways that we've been able to avoid a lot of conflict around the idea of submission and obedience is that I never have to use those words. I mean, I use synonyms that are just as
No,
effective because people are triggered by certain things. And I'm
no,
not
no.
suggesting that my wife is triggered by those words, but
You
like
shouldn't
people
have
are.
to. You shouldn't have to.
Now, here's my point. I'm not dodging accountability, nor will I deny the truth in any way. So if I need to use the words, I'll use the words fearlessly. My point, however, is I'm intelligent enough to know that both words are synonymous with alignment, and that's the goal. Are we in
Right.
alignment? So when I am
That
addressing,
is it. That is
yeah,
it.
when I'm addressing issues of what would be considered obedience or submission, what I'm really addressing is I've laid out a roadmap. I've told you the direction that we're going in. We agreed to this. Where are we misaligning so that we're not still on this path? Was it me? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Did I
Right.
reflect
But again,
a
but
deviation?
but but the role, heavy is the head that wears the crown. You know that, okay?
Yeah.
And you
Mhm.
can be that leader in any area of life, right?
Right.
And once you take that role on, you have to always be working on yourself
That's a
to
fact.
be thinking broadly. Once you start to thinking of just yourself, again, there's no alignment. There will be no alignment.
Right, right. And what's the consequence of misalignment?
Failure,
Disaster. Yep.
failure.
Disaster, divorce, failure. You name
Yep.
it. You can't go into a job and not comply with company policy.
Right.
You automatically asking to be fired. Where in what situation, in what role can we ever accept where we cannot comply with policy? Because really that's what marriage is as well. It's God's policy. It's how
Right.
it's
I
how
love
we're
that.
supposed to align ourselves with God in order to reap the benefits of the alignment, so to speak, of our obedience. Like
Right.
obedience is not about taken away from who you are. It's about adding to who you are through what God promises
Mm.
you. Yeah.
You
So
know, I'll use one more example. So I have projects that I work on in my life, and in order to be successful at all of them as much as possible ongoing, there is a place where I have to be prayerful about my own obedience in terms of my relationship with God.
mhm.
So I will ask for certain things. I'll ask God, this is something that I'd like to see happen. I want to work on this project. I need the bandwidth. I need the strength. I need the commitment.
Yeah.
And one thing recently happened. It was a great win for me. And after I got what I wanted, I went back into prayer to say, God, you gave me more than what I asked for. And I get it. It is my job now to be obedient to the gift, and all the responsibility that comes with that gift.
Mm,
Because everything kind of builds on each other.
mhm.
And my professional work life, my writer work life, they have to be in alignment.
Mhm.
or something is going to suffer.
Mhm.
And that is something that I really try to be aware of, and not get the blessing, not get what I asked for, and then forget where it came from,
Right.
right? So
Uh-huh.
that I'm able to rate, actually, what I've asked for should serve God.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
I've asked for should be something that glorifies Him. And when I am in alignment that way, no stopping, man, no stopping.
Amen. So to wrap my word up, basically, when you continue alignment with the creator, with God, you begin to you fall your alignment creates a pattern of obedience, and that pattern is also a positive omen for you to be able to recognize that you're doing what you should be doing.
I love it. I love it. Great way to put a bow on that one, Gino.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So
Oh
that's
my
my
goodness.
word, and that's the conclusion. And Marcia, I'm handing it to you.
Oh, thanks everybody for watching the show. We truly appreciate everyone that's supporting us. Just want to remind you, please like the show, make some comments on it, and don't forget to subscribe. We are just trying to grow this channel so that we can continue to bring you guys amazing content. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.